Welcome to the Empowered Team podcast. I am so excited to have Gaelle Deschamps today. She is a force of nature. In fact, her company is called G-Force, and she is all about advocating for women's empowerment, which of course, I think everyone listening knows that I love that. However, this is unique. Gaelle has so much experience from all sorts of consulting and coaching and marketing experience in big companies. We're talking Coca-Cola. She's got a TEDx talk. She's all about really making a powerful difference. And there's so much. She's got 23 years of corporate experience. There's so much here that I want to tap into. I'm so excited to have you on our podcast, Gaelle, and hear all about your art of confidence. This is a program, a curriculum that you've been developing, and you're actually doing this to make this mandatory, make it mandatory in leadership for women, for girls, where we're losing our female leaders. So I'm really curious about this, and I want to tie it in as well with what this looks like for society, for men, because the majority of leaders are men, what this looks like for women, for girls. I'm really excited to hear all about this. So before we dive in, tell us a little more about you. You're Gaelle. You live in a place called Jersey, which is not New Jersey. It's not in the US, everybody. Let's be clear.
And a lot of American and North American will immediately associate it with New Jersey. But yes, so I'm Gaëlle, and obviously I'm French. The name suggests it. I'm married to a Canadian though, so Deschamps is Canadian. Yes, and we have 3 kids. All 3 of them are proud Canadians. They all ice skate and ice hockey and all of that, and we drink maple syrup every Sunday with our crepe, of course.
Love it.
And I grew up in France, but from a very early age, I was attracted to international and Anglo-Saxon world. I knew that this were where the movers and shakers were, and where the learning growth, the learning curve were the best, and you could make a difference on a global scale. And so I went to study in America when I was, as soon as I could, basically, I was like, I'm going. So I went to Boston College, and I had an epiphany. It was exactly what I wanted. I connected with the whole world there. And then from then, I never came back to France. So I've been 27 years away from France. So I lived in America. Then I lived 25 years in London. And then last year, I just moved to Jersey, which is a beautiful island off the coast of France, independent country. And I'm living the dream, having my own business and living by the sea, jogging with my kids on the sea, going sailing on the weekend. So one of the upside of COVID, I guess, we can do everything remotely. And my husband and I both have our own business. So yeah, that's in a nutshell about me.
Oh, you are a woman after my heart. I love to go different places, live different places, do different adventures. So I love this. This just sounds magical because it also sounds like you are truly aligned with your life. You are living the life you want while living into your mission. And that mission is a big, powerful mission. And if we look at half of the population of the world are women, and yet there's such a disparity when it comes to leadership. Now, I'm all for men, and I'm all for men leading. And at the same time, I'm realizing with a lot of the men that I coach and the men that I consult for that they want women leaders too. They understand the value that's there, and yet there's fewer to draw from. So if they've got a choice, there's not as many available. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because women are powerful leaders and fantastic leaders. And yet when there's a smaller pool to draw from with the experience, with the education, with the ability, what's happening there? Tell me more.
It's a really good observation. So there's few kind of forces at play, I would say. One is somehow when girls are young, I'm going to say under 12, they believe they can do anything. They're just as strong as boys. There's really no difference in their charisma, their ambition, their confidence. They can go on stage. They just we're on par. We have the same leadership potential. Then something drastic happens during adolescence for girls. Suddenly, 39% of them opt out of leadership for their future selves. It's a mix of, why? Everybody's asking me why. What's happening to teenage girls? Well, obviously, we go through puberty. That's a non-negligible change. So hormonal change, maybe your hair, your face, your shapes are changing in a way that's kind of a little bit embarrassing. So you're not as keen to be in the spotlight. You're not as keen to take a stance and maybe be criticized or be sort of out there. And unfortunately, that's a gap that's really literally handicapping the whole of the women because it's a leaking bucket. So already when we arrive at university and the marketplace, 40% of women have opted out. So then there's only 60% left to then go into the ranks of leadership all the way to CEO. And we know that I think 10% is the latest estimate, the latest numbers of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. So it is better. 3 years ago was 4%. So, we're going in the right direction. But every company that I speak to, they all suffer from, there isn't enough of a pool, a talent pool from women. Why? Well, genetically, of course, we're not the same, right? Women and men. So we have a deficit of confidence, women, written in our DNA, written in the way that we overthink everything, that we seek for validation elsewhere, outside, which generally, and we don't self-promote. Like self-advocacy is not something that we are truly owning and truly confident. There's so many stats that are showing how we held ourselves back, either because society has told us so, or because it's literally coded inside us. So the message here is, as a woman and as a girl, we need to work doubly hard on building our confidence. And when I was an executive coach for Coca-Cola, for the high potential woman at Coke, everyone that we sort of said, this one, she's got the potential to go all the way to the top. We gave her specific training. I was their coach. The narrative, whether you were assistant or CEO, was the same. It was, we are holding us back because we have all this narrative inside our heads that's kind of eating us from inside. And I spent about a year doing research on the confidence killer, like the key confidence killers across the world, like that all women share. And there's 17 of them. And out of the 17, 16 are self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. We have a big power as women to help each other, like this kind of sisterhood, common awakening of saying, look, I know we're suffering from that, but there is a way out. It's a skill. Confidence is a skill. You can actually acquire it. You can work on it, just like you go to the gym to get muscle, just like you do yoga to be flexible. You can do these exercises, these thought process that can help you be more confident. So I think, yeah.
First, I really want to highlight this, that you're talking about confidence as a skill. And
Mm-hmm.
I have taught about confidence as well in various ways, and I see it coming up over and over and over again. It's something that it's not just a one-time thing to teach about, and teaching
lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. It's an emotional state. It's a belief system. It's a skill set. So there's so much to it, and there's research on overconfidence as well, and they call it the Dunning-Kruger effect, the being stranded on Mount Stupid, and that's happens far less in women than it does in men.
So, and it depends which culture you come from, right? Like I used to coach people from the Philippines to Africa to America. Your culture massively will influence your confidence level. Americans, North American are a lot better at talking about themselves, presenting themselves, speaking in public. Even myself, I remember I come from the French education system, and it was forbidden to raise your hand, and it was seen as a challenge to the teacher in class. So, you've got to listen and say yes, and that's how you're raised. And then in America, I went to the MBA class and I got penalized because I didn't raise my hand enough.
Speaking out.
And you've got to speak even if you have nothing to say, it's like the opposite. And I was like, oh my God. So your culture massively will influence. And having lived 25 years in the UK, I can confidently say that women in the UK are not at the risk of becoming arrogant. They are on the lower side of the spectrum,
Yes,
from a cultural point of view.
And then not only that, there's two things that I want to comment on that. Then if women are seemingly confident, they're often ostracized by other women. They may not be ostracized by men because men may not be intimidated by that, or if they are, they may not say anything, but other women can ostracize that because it's a one-downsmanship with females versus a one-upsmanship with males. I want to one-up you. Women want to show that they're less than the other person to connect with other people. So it's a very interesting dynamic in order to, okay, can I be confident and then feel like I'm going to stand out and be subjected to tall poppy syndrome or whatever that looks like. So you want to comment on that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's something, but I don't want to cut you in the flow.
Sure,
But
sure.
it's there's two things at play here. One is that unfortunately, when women succeed in a male-dominated industry, the correlation between success and popularity does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
When a woman succeed in a traditionally okay for women to succeed, like if you're in the flowers, if you're in makeup, if you're in education, then the success and your likability is correlated. So that's one. It's much harder for women to be liked and to be respected and to be revered and to have these strong bonds when they are outside a female authorized field, kind of, if I can say it that way.
A stereotypically female realm, whether it's homemaking or, you know, fashion or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Skincare.
So then it's okay for women to be there. You'll see, you know, nurses, hospital caring, the whole caring industry, you know, massages, all this. Like that's okay for women to succeed there. So I think it's easier for women to have a good relationship with their colleagues in such industries because it's linked to likability. It's correlated to likability. Now, when it's not, it's harder because that means for a woman to have arrived where she is, she's had to work almost twice as hard.
Yes.
And so therefore, I think there's a bit of, well, I've had it tough, you're going to have it tough kind of thing. And, you know, which isn't helpful. But
No,
I think that's
other women coming up the ranks. It's like, I earned it in this challenging way, and I'm going to make it challenging for you too, which does not help the cycle.
But obviously, we want to break that cycle. We want to make sure that there's a really like a sisterhood community, and that the more, you know, we are gatekeepers. Yes, of course, men are always gatekeepers for us. They help us go higher and sort of share the traditionally male-only sort of seats at the table. But I think woman to woman, we really need to change because we're in it together. Like, you know, I think we can really truly only win if we're going to be allies, if we're going to be friends, if we're going to be enablers, if we're going to be a tribe that support, uplift, challenge, but, you know, have their back to each other.
On that note, there's stats that show that women who have been in sport are more likely to be in leadership. And it makes me think of competition. And competition can become very negative, but the side of things, especially in sport, this positive rivalry speaks exactly to what you're mentioning, which is, you know, we need to have each other's backs. And that's what a team does. And that's what women often have to figure out when they get to higher and higher level teams, which men figure out very quickly. This is something that they innately figure out at a young age. Women don't do as much. They might become adversarial on the same team, and until they learn how to truly have each other's backs in a group environment, that's when there's much greater success for everyone. So is that something that you have taken a look at in your studies and travels?
So it's so interesting, and you know, I'm a sort of a big fan of sports for all sorts of reasons. You know, I mean, now we call it mental health, but before it was called that, I was a big fan anyway, because I think that's how you unlock a lot of energy and clarity in yourself, and feel good factor, and that's, you can then channel that in all areas of your life. But in particular to leadership, what we see is that indeed, the sports, the collective sport in particular, teaches very fundamental leadership skills like teamwork, like bouncing back. I think for women, that's one really tricky thing is when we fail, like, the whole world collapses. It takes us forever to recover from a failure or from a setback. Whereas guys, men, just, it's like, it's just a small detail of their day. They're not being destroyed. They're not going to overthink about it. They're not, they're not going to stop sleeping because of that. They just kind of move on a lot quicker. So if a woman or girls participate in these sports and learn these really precious skills of, we're in it together. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win, but that's part of the kind of up and down of the journey to, success or whatever it is in the end, like defining success according to the team. Like, what do we want? Do we want number one, or are we happy just to do the regional, or, so I think that's really important. The other thing that's important, and we have a program here in Jersey called the Leadership and Entrepreneurship Accelerated Program, is to sign up to non-curriculum activities that are going to like equip you. So whether it's the Scouts, whether it's like a summer camp, whether it's a trip abroad with, your sort of cohort from your age, these are like, foster a sense of adventure, of possibility, or overcoming obstacles, of making friends with strangers, networking, talking about yourself. Who are you? They force you to practice these really important skills. And then it's a game of, it's the 10,000 hours game, like Malcolm Gladwell. The more you do, the more confident.
Repetition is the mother's skill. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So signing up to as many camps and activities and speaking to strangers, one more sentence. And also one thing I want to say is a lot of girls that I've spoken to, and literally I've spoken to like thousands of girls, one way they opt out of leadership is that if they are introverts, they think they cannot be good leaders. And I want to really dismantle that. And even for women, if you are an introvert, really it isn't a sign of you not being a leader. There was tons of good leaders that were introverts. Mahatma Gandhi, Barack Obama was introvert, believe it or not. It's a very important set of quality that we need. If we only have leaders that extroverts, no one will be good listeners. No one will care deeply. So if you are listening and you are an introvert, I really want you to hone in on what are the superpowers that you bring to the table. Because I really believe in a team is hyper performance when they're diverse. If you've just got a bunch of alpha male that are competitive and loud and extroverts, they're not going to be the winning team. We need the introverts to be at the table and to lean in and to dare to have a quiet voice, but to sort of say, I've been listening a lot and I noticed that. So, I find that's like one important sub aspect of why we're not more present in, why we're not opting into leadership.
I love this. I love this because what you're just describing to me, I would call deep consideration. Someone who is introverted is often in a path of consideration that has so much value to offer, but if they don't get to voice it, then its value never exists. And in the leadership work that I do, I'm often articulating that you don't want a bunch of people that think like you. You want other people thinking differently so that you have a much greater breadth and depth of problem solving, of all of the imaginative, creative necessities for whatever the business's needs are.
Yeah.
But I want to go back for just a second. You had mentioned that there were 17 confidence killers and 16 are self-inflicted. What are typically some of those confidence killers? If you can maybe throw some of the top ones, maybe top 5 or top 3, and what are the patches, the fixes, the healing of those confidence killers? What would you say those are?
So and I don't know if I should say that, but I'm in the process of writing a book, and it's called The Art of Confidence.
Oh, beautiful.
The Art of Confidence.
I love this.
And there's a whole section, like a whole chapter on the confidence killers. And so, if I may, I'm going to read them out to you, and you tell me which one you want to double click on. Okay.
Yeah. Well, give us the top. Give us the top 5, like the ones that are really the really go-to ones.
Okay. So the first thing maybe that everybody will recognize themselves is negativity bias.
Mm-hmm.
We start and we see the problem before we even started, right? So that's I guess that's from the survival days, from thousands, millions of years, where this was a skill, this was great, it kept us alive, but it's no longer needed. So we must start every project, every conversation, every new situation with a positive outcome, and learn to retrain ourselves to see the positive first. And I don't, I'm a mother of 3, and I have to tell this to my kids like every day. I prepare a beautiful dinner, I set the table, and they'll be like, my toast is cold. I'm like, start like this, because you're wiring your brain for negativity. Like you start by all the good stuff that you see, that you appreciate, and then you say, even better. But it happens in these like micro moments of life when you don't think you're in a leadership typical scenario, but your brain is playing tricks on you. And it's really about catching that, as well as, the formal leadership moments. But I think that's a big one. I think for women, and maybe you've already spoken to this, so I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it's the imposter syndrome. Do I deserve to be here? Oh my God, I'm going to be found out. I haven't got what it takes. I didn't tick all the boxes of the interview. I only tick 8 and they wanted 10. I'm going to be found out. I'm going to be grilled and they're going to discover, oh my God, oh my God. And that's something that's very feminine. Men, they apply to the job. They've got 5 out of the 10 and they feel super powerful and they feel they're going to nail the job. And we've got 8 out of 10 and we're like, oh, shit, we're going to be found out. Oh, la, la, it's a drama. It's so true. It's so stereotypical, but it is still so true. And we have got to, again, and I'm really passionate about shaping the next generation of female leader. And it starts with the kids. It starts at home. It starts with the parents. We have the power to help shape the brain, the mental state of our kids. And yes, of course, then they'll go to school and then the teachers will also do a great job, hopefully. But it starts at home, and it really, it's kind of, you deserve to be where you are. You are where you are because people believed in you, and you have to believe in yourself. Like that's, I always say the most challenging and the most rewarding thing you have to do in your life is to fall in love with yourself again and again. Because you're the person who you're going to spend the most time, in fact, the rest of your life with. Even if you find, l'âme sœur, like we say in French, like your soul sister, and you will marry and have a wonderful, loving life, it's still not as long as the time you will spend with yourself. If you love your parents, if you love your siblings, you still are not going to spend as much time with them. If you've got kids and you have unconditional love with them, and you think that's a wonderful relationship, you're still not going to have the same amount of time as you have with yourself. So really the most crucial, the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. It's the root cause, it's the core, it's the inside, the seed of the apple. And without that, it's very difficult to accept the love of others. And I think imposter syndrome is a result of that. If you truly, truly love yourself, you shut the imposter syndrome down. Because you feel that you deserve, like you're worthy, you are enough, you're loved. So of course other people are going to love you and value you for that, and give you that raise and give you that promotion and offer you this opportunity, and you're not going to feel guilty because you love yourself. Yeah. So I think that's another big one. The other one is comparing yourself with others. And I have to say, the whole social media thing is just sent this problem on an exponential problem. Because before, you would compare yourself with whoever was in your class or in your company or in your street or in your village or in your town. And that was it. There was a limited amount of people you could compare yourself with. And normally, it was like, well, if you're a doctor in this town, there isn't that many. If you are a lawyer in this town, there isn't that many. Like it was a limited amount. Now it's like the whole, like billions of people. You can compare yourself to billions of people. So it's very overwhelming. I think the best thing for that is not to spend too much time on social media, is to remember that comparison is the quickest way to misery, that yes, you can get inspired. I say to people, look to other people, but look for inspiration, not for comparison, because you will always find someone who has more than you, who is more than you, but you don't know the full story. Is whatever they have shared, you compare with that little portion of their life, often edited, often not absolutely accurate of the actual truth in that moment. And you compare an edited outside version of people with your real inside version. And that's an unfair comparison.
Yeah.
And that's why it leads to misery. So comparison, I think, is one of the big confidence killers.
That's huge. That's huge. These are really powerful ones. And I think these are ones that are permeating so many people, especially permeating their lives in ways they may not even realize. And especially in this day and age of social media. What would you say are, I'm gonna guess that your Art of Confidence, your book, your programs are likely some of the things that really provide the skill set or the training for the skill set to counteract some of these things. And these are just three. These are three of the top confidence killers. There's 17. And as you say, 6 of them are, or 16 of them, I should say, are self-inflicted. So right now I'm seeing this picture that is pretty iffy about women in leadership. It kind of looks like, okay, not only do we think differently, but then we've also got society and we've got all these other things. Tell us why it's critical to have women in leadership. What is the value that women bring to leadership roles? What do men need to know about their women leaders and how important this is? So why do we want more women leaders? What's the golden ticket here?
So the headline, executive summary is it's good business. It really is good business. It's a win-win for everyone involved. It's proven, literally all the studies, and I spend a lot of time researching, all the studies prove that when women are in the leading position or in leadership position, the company does better, the community do better, the communities do better because women are normally more giving, more caring, so they will add that to the table. They're not just driven by profit, like they will say, what about the planet? What about the people? What about the community? What about, they're just going to be more caring people. And I think there's loads of statistics depending on the industry and depending on where the woman is in the leadership hierarchy. But it's good for the bottom line. Like it's better. There's better profit margin when women are involved. And then, so not only is a business argument, and then on the other side, women who are leaders, there's been a massive survey of checking men and women and rate them from their peers, like their team, and rating their leadership skills. And women outscore men on all leadership measures. So if you are reporting to a woman, you are much likely to have a better experience than if you're reporting to a man. The communication is going to be simpler, the listening skill is going to be better, the sense of belonging is going to be higher, your engagement is going to be higher, all across all the measures. Like the creativity is going to be better across all measures of leadership. Women score higher when they lead versus men. So it's a bit of a conundrum because it's like, we don't have enough, but we know that when we do have them, it's great for the bottom line and it's great for the people and it's great for the community. So it feels like on one side we have a door open, and on the other side it's a door closed. So it's a bit of how do How do we make sure that everyone, and for me, it's really about awareness. It's about driving that awareness, and because equipping women to say, look, I know we're battling with all these confidence issues inside, but you are amazing. Once you're there, you're amazing. So look, just go for it because you're needed.
This is such a powerful conversation. I've also heard you refer to leadership as lead hership with the GR, and then I've also heard someone else refer to leadership as leadership is feminine, meaning that the attributes that encompass great leadership are feminine attributes. And you just mentioned a number of them, whether it's being, this view, this comprehensive view, this ability to listen, this ability to care, it's the connecting the dots that might be necessary. And what I'm hearing in all of this is that this is such a critical part of not just leadership in business, but also overall leadership in life and community. And I'm always, when I'm defining leadership, the critical foundation, if it was to be looked at as a pyramid or a triangle, the critical foundation is self-leadership. And every you're describing is the ability to figure out some of the things that are in our heads and be able to lead ourselves. So then that brings us to the men, and I don't want to just say men and women because there's combinations of femininity and masculinity in every being. And in myself, I tend to be very masculine in some ways and very feminine in other ways. So when we look at this, when it comes to men, I hear a lot of these things from men as well, even men in leadership roles where they realize that they're being reactive or there's negative bias in themselves, or they realize some of these things. Definitely not to the extent that women experience. But my question would be, how do men not only support women in their confidence or their daughters in confidence, and then also how do they support the solution instead of the problem? How do they help the situation versus contribute to the problem, if you will?
Yes. Really, really good question. There was one thing I wanted to add from you, the previous topic, which is, why do we need women in why it's super important. And I'm sure maybe your listeners and you've heard of the marshmallow challenge.
Yep.
And basically there's like a whole TED talk about it. And this is kind of a leadership tool that you use when team building and all that. And literally, when you only have men, let's say you put all the CEOs, all the exec committee in one room and you give them the marshmallow challenge, it's all about the ego, right? It's who's going to have the politics, who's going to be the stronger, who's going to lead the most. And they don't get it. They can't do the challenge. You add one woman into there, suddenly they can do the challenge. So that just reminded me, that little exercise, which is just so simple, so basic, but so true, that, you need women on board with you because actually it solves the problem you didn't even know existed, like a marshmallow challenge. But to come back to your question on the role of men in all of that. And it's funny because I've been asked that because obviously with my art of leadership, it's clearly targeted at women. And at Gaelle, actually, this particular program is kind of for girls 11 to 18. And I had a lot of questions from the teachers that had sons and people who had boys, and they were like worrying about, what's happening to our boys. And so the first thing I would say is, in teenage years, boys do not suffer from a drop in leadership willingness. That's the first thing. Their leadership ambition remains the same all along, and they go into adulthood unhurt, undamaged, right? They haven't had the same, I guess, hormonal change or experience. They are good to go. So there is a need to boost women, that particular group of teenage girls, because they suffer and the boys don't. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think it's very important to have a dialogue and to communicate across both. So I'm busy and keen to educate the girls, but I also need to educate the boys about this is what the girls are going through. I want you to be aware. And for some of them, they have sisters and they have mothers that might be sharing so they know. But women, we go through a very different life stage. We have our periods, then we are pregnant, then we give birth, then we have menopause. Like all these things are very unique, female only things in life where, I was chatting to a team leader and he has women in his team and he was like, oh my God, I've just learned about menopause. Oh my God, I'm going to not be so harsh on them now. It's like, it's about educating what's it to be a woman, so that they can understand. I have loads of friends who are in the finance industry who just had a baby and are scared to go back to work because they know that they're not going to be understood, because their heart is going to now be, oh my God, I want to be with my baby. I can't now work around the clock in the office. I'm happy to work at home when my baby is sleeping, but I've got to be at home to care. And that is very different. If you're a man, you don't have that. So I think we have a duty to educate all the men in our lives about what it is to lead as a woman. What are the specific challenges that we go through and how they can be on our side. And this is about asking for help. This is about saying, I want you to understand me. So better communicating, better self-advocacy, which again, we're not very good at. And starting a conversation so that we don't feel we have to do it alone, because in fact we don't and we can't. We need men on board. So I'm speaking. So because I'm spending so much time with the girls in secondary school, I'm speaking for the International Women's Day. I'm speaking to the boys' school. 1,000 boys to talk about why do we have an International Women's Day? And what is it different about women and what's important? What do they need to watch out for? How can they help? So I think it's really important to engage both sides and then also together.
It's amazing because we have this possibility of differences being very divisive, and it's us and them, or and yet when we're at our best, meaning men are at their best, women are at their best, when we're all at our best, we know intuitively, viscerally, intellectually, we know that we're all better together in interacting and functioning together. And yet, when we're fearful, when we're lacking confidence, when we're uncertain in some way or another, that's when we tend to, think that someone's against us, or kind of cocoon ourselves in a way that does not support each other. And it's so true that women supporting men, we know that those men are going to be able to perform better, feel better about themselves, all of the things. And same thing for women. When there are men supporting women, and it whether that's a man or woman or a masculine, feminine partner, whatever way that looks, we know that it yields something that's so far greater than some of its parts. So
And what you just said made me think of something. When you said the feminine and the masculine, I think there's also a lot of men that suffer inside the man sort of umbrella because they have more feminine traits, because they might be better listening. Maybe they have a physique that's less muscular, less strong. Maybe they have a quieter voice. So diversity is needed in everything. It's being a man doesn't look like this, and being a woman doesn't look like this. There's variance, and we need all voices. And I think the bottom line is how do we enable everyone to show up authentically? Because when we do that, then people can bring the best to the table, true original stories, true original ideas based on their holistic self, not what they want to bring to the table because that's how they need to be seen. And that's so otherwise this is kind of same thinking, so
it promotes It promotes acceptance of something that's different than yourself. And when there's something that's different than yourself, someone that's different, some way of being that's different, some culture that's different, I think one of the easiest ways to promote acceptance is to understand that that simply expands what's possible, expands more of the information or problem solving or whatever the desire is out of that situation, versus creating limits on ourselves by going, oh, it's just got to be this way. And right now, and I think it's detrimental to men and to women, but there has been such a narrowly defined version of leadership, and it's really hurting businesses, it's hurting men, it's hurting women, and thereby the societal trickle down effect ends up being on our boys and our girls. And then our boys and our girls see that it's only this. And what you've been saying so eloquently is that girls need to see that leadership looks like this and this and this and this and this. Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's supporting someone, maybe it's sport, maybe it's business, but not those defined roles that are historically thought of as leadership, because it's not helping, it's only hurting our boys and our girls to keep going down a narrowed pathway.
And absolutely. And building on your point, I did a study with 770 girls. And when you redefine leadership in this way, the way you just articulated, like a much broader, a much more diverse way, that's more about having an idea, implementing a new project that's going to be beneficial to your community, daring to speak up, speaking on behalf of marginal communities, this kind of much more humane definition about caring for each other, then the leadership willingness double for girls. So, I mean, that's huge. That's like a big gold nuggets right there, that if we took the time to help everyone redefine their vision of leadership for a more inclusive, a more generous, a more humane definition, it would help everybody, because then you can identify with a greater variety. So in the program that I'm running with schools, I make sure that the girls are exposed to like hundreds of women, so that they see, oh, you can be a woman, you can be a leader if you dance, you can be a leader if you sing, you can be a leader if you compose, you can be a leader if you're a carer, you can be a leader if you're a mother, you can be a leader any age, so that we really kind of explode the stereotypes that it's only one genre, that you have to fit into a box. No, you can be you and you can lead. You don't need to twist and bend into a box to become a leader. You could just be you and lead.
I love that. Oh, what a beautiful way to bring it all together. I want people to know where they can find you. So you have a book. Is your book already out, or is it coming out? Art of Confidence.
Not yet. My TEDx is out, so they can listen to the TEDx talk. I think the exact title is How to Shape the Next Generation of Female Leaders in 4 Steps. So if they Google my name and that, they will find it.
Okay. We'll put this in the show notes. The show notes of this podcast, we'll put your TED Talk link.
Okay, cool. And then otherwise they can email me or check my website, gforceco.co.uk. And I'll be happy to take in questions, or if someone felt particularly keen and interested about anything that we've discussed, I'd love to continue the conversation with your listeners.
I love this. If there is one last message that you want to leave our audience, and maybe it's something that you wish someone told you years ago, what would that message be? There's one last parting thought. What do you think you'd like to say?
I would say, if you see a gap, if you see a problem, just go and fix it. Like, don't wait for someone else to fix it. Go and lead and take the initiative, speak up, organize something and fix the problem, whether it's in your community, whether it's in your family. That feel empowered that you have the power to make a change, however small. It's like if everybody started to make a small positive change, the world would be rippled by positivity and growth and delight. So go and make a difference, however small, however big, in your community, in your family, in your world. Believe you can, and just go do it.
I love that. I love that. I love your messaging. I love how you deliver your message. I am so grateful to have you with us on our podcast. So thank you,
For having
everyone.
me.
No problem. Thank you.
Oh, bye bye.